What?
That's all right.
Sounds like a dirty vibe.
We got some people around.
Everyone's like,
They were too, they were all just like,
Alright, so on when I'm trimming the lids, I don't even put a wad of clay anymore. I'll sometimes seal it down with just taking my wooden knife and just kind of compressing it underneath. Kind of creates like a little vacuum seal under there, sort of. Or so I like to think. Either way, it kind of holds it in place. So then I can come in and trim this down. To whatever I need it to. I usually leave my lids a little bit, like the flanges of them, I usually leave them a little bit thick so then I have a little bit of wiggle room to actually trim. Like this is already getting a little bit too thin. And it doesn't quite fit, right? So, let's do this guy. And I'll do the same thing with this. Just take that wood knife, come down to the bottom. And the biggest thing is just don't get too trim happy because it will go very, very quickly from not fitting to fitting to not fitting again. And silicon carbide has become my new favorite friend. Do you silicon carbide your stuff?
I use spent cone pads.
Oh, that would work. It's probably cheaper too. Yeah, that's close-ish. So once that's started down, then I can come in and I can trim this lid up. I might not want to do this on this piece because it's still a little bit wet. I might break the neck off. But we're going to do it anyway because I'm not very smart.
I can't believe it stuck to that wheel that you're actually trimming.
Actually, it's got a lot of clay there.
How'd you meet Brian Van Oster?
I met him, Mark Telbert is actually really good friends with him. And I met him, I've only met him once or twice. I haven't met him very much. I still haven't gone down to his place. I keep threatening to, and then something comes up and I'm unable to go, or girlfriends, they kind of get in the way, and you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I just haven't been down to visit him. I've talked to him a few times. I'm hoping he'll actually be coming up to this show that we got coming on next month.
And that's in Morgantown?
That is in Morgantown.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to go see that.
Well, if any of you guys want to come down, we should have a really, really good show for you next month. I work at it's basically a pottery shop slash gallery slash cafe. And our next show is going to be 20 potters, I think. Basically, we have a group called the Studio 10s that we've been kind of working on. And it's basically a bunch of us that were from grad school, undergrad, and China programs and stuff like that. And so we all invited like people that have been mentors to us. And you went to school with Mark, is that right?
Yeah.
So Lambros
Actually, I
went
was
to
a
school.
little ahead of Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, he was behind.
Okay.
Mhm.
But Lambros knows my professor from Utah, and so the pottery world is actually very, very small. But if you guys can make it down, you'll see a lot of good pots. Alright, so do you guys remember the little bunny heads that are so eerily cool? Basically, I just take a piece of clay, kind of get a generalized shape. Kind of start to form like little eyes. So, I mean, very, very crude, right? Because in all actuality, it does not look like a bunny at all. And I can totally come in and change the shape of these things and push that clay around because it is still very soft. So I just can come in and kind of pinch it down a little bit. And then the other thing is I'll often just take that, put it on top just kind of so you get an idea of the scale of it, because I don't want it to be too big where it's like battling, or too small that it looks like I'm not really sure what it is on top. So I just kind of gauge that a little bit. And then like the back part I kind of pinch in because that's where I'm going to attach the ears. And then the front is for obviously the teeth. Do you have a battling knife by chance? These have been my newfound funness. And the coolest thing about these things is the people who like them the most are generally 45 to 55-year-old women, which is the most ironic part of the whole thing, because, you know, I wouldn't have anticipated that. I would have anticipated, like, younger guys or younger people to enjoy them. But apparently the middle-aged women really like them, so you can never be too quick to judge.
Will this work?
Yeah. So on the ears, basically what I do is just take a coil of clay, kind of pinch it down, and because I want the sides of the ears to be a little bit, I mean, it's not necessarily a super thin piece of clay, right? It's thick enough that it'll have a little bit of strength to it. If it gets too thin, it's probably going to crack really easy or break off really easy. So there's a really, really easy way to create a little bit of an illusion on how thick that is. Let's just kind of taper that edge just a little bit. So then it's still relatively thick, but we'll have a little bit of strength to it. So you don't have to worry about losing their ears so easily. And I can kind of stretch that clay and get it to sort of the finalized shape. And then I just basically curl that around. So, very, very simple, but still tough enough that it'll take a little bit of abuse before it's going to crack. So then I just kind of give it a little curl and a little wave. And then make another one. And I keep thinking about other things I could do to these things. So I've thought about wanting to do like elephant heads, just because of all the way. Have you guys ever seen what an elephant skull looks like?
Yeah, it looks
It's
like a...
awesome. Looks like a what? Sorry.
Oh, in in Greek mythology, they thought that elephant skulls were cyclops skulls.
Yes. They look awesome.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about doing those, and then having like big elephant ears coming off the cyclops heads, or like just finding some of these animals that have really, really cool extremities, like the bunny with the ears, right? Because they're just so dynamic compared to this skull, and so it's just something that I kind of find interesting about it, as far as trying to find those little weird ways that you can kind of have a skull on there, but still make it somewhat humorous. I think that's why I call them unholy half-dead bunnies versus just rabbit skull with ears. But do the same thing with this one. Kind of bend it around, do whatever you want to it. And normally I would let these things set up a little bit before I would attach them. We're going to see if we can get it to survive. Actually, I need to do something else first. Once I get this sort of shaped, I just come in and kind of flatten it out. Just give it a little bit of kind of a continuous texture. So it either kind of almost mimics fur, even though it's not, or just gives it a little bit of a sort of a texture to it. But you could actually make it look like fur, which would be even kind of creepier, I think. Which means I should probably do it just because it's twisted and fun. So once I get to that point, then I'm just going to come in, kind of give it that little lines. Give it a couple little teeth. And then just come in here, give it a little bit of a schnoz or so the first ones of these did not look quite so good. They kind of looked really, really crude. And, this is still a little bit crudish, but they have refined quite a bit more. The proportions are actually getting a little bit closer to what I like, as far as like the relationship between the heads and the eyes and the nose and everything else. So now we have a very angry looking, looks more like a beaver. But the interesting thing is most of these animals have, their skulls actually look very, very similar. Like rodents all have very, very similar sort of skulls. And so, if I didn't put the ears on it, then you wouldn't know what it was, most likely. So just add a little bit of water to the sides of these things. One here. And you can, they don't necessarily have to be touching. I always kind of attach them just because they are so delicate. It just makes them so they're easier to transport, easier to ship, or whatever else. So just by giving it just a little bit of water. So now we've got, oop, his eyes got flattened out. But the other thing is you can actually come in and you can just push it down right there, and then it looks like an angry gun. Holy, that's funny. So you can actually give these things a little bit of emotions and stuff, which is always kind of fun. Or you got the happy one on the side. So you got kind of a happy sad. Or the raised eyebrow or something. Anyway, they're fun to play around with because you can totally give them sort of characteristics that you would not think that you could give them. So, just fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a little slip right here.
You ever seen the Ken Ferguson pots?
Yes!
Pots?
I love
I
those.
just wondered if you had seen those.
I did see those. I actually did not start doing bunny heads until Beth Kavanagh sticked her. She does those really, really cool bunnies. And I was actually putting human skulls on like bottles for tops and stuff like that. And she's like, why? I'm like, she's like, you know what you need to do? You need to put bunny heads. I'm like, okay. So I put a bunny head on. I'm like, I like it. And so I've just been trying to figure out different animals that you could actually do that to, and still have it be as dynamic as the bunny. Because those ears are what make these things so cool. The rest of it's kind of like, whatever. But as soon as you get the ears on, it's like, oh, that's awesome. So it's just one of those little things that makes a big difference in that final piece. So.
Do a unicorn skull.
See, that's a mythical beast. This is not a mythical beast. This is right outside here.
The horse is a horse.
It could be. Oh, now we're talking. I haven't quite. I've got some ideas. I do have some ideas. I just haven't quite figured out how to execute them. So something like that. But I've actually got some. As far as like those kind of ideas where you're like, I need a break.